all out there in Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube world. Super excited today to be joined by another amazing woman entrepreneur living child-free. Eva, welcome. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here this morning. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so y'all are probably wondering, just like me, that little teaser you saw in the description, been waiting all week. So when Eva was frozen by college decision overwhelm, a random family joke unexpectedly set her path in motion. What was it, and how did it lead her to a lifelong career and impact? And so I feel like that's how we have to start today. Tell us, what is this joke?
Yeah, so it's really funny. So when I was applying, I grew up in San Francisco, and when I was applying for schools, I was kind of set I was going to either go to UCLA or I was going to go to Boston, and I knew I wanted to go back east. So I was, diligently doing my applications. And basically what happened is, my family's like, "Well, why don't you look at Fordham University? It's our last name. Wouldn't it be funny? You just never know." And so I went, "Oh, okay, I think I guess, So I wrote, so this was late 90s, just to date myself here. And it was when Dionne Warwick and Psychic Friends was very popular. So I put my whole essay about how I called Psychic Friends and they said I should go to a school with the last name of my family's. And so I chose Fordham and I just sent it off and I went, whatever. And then so I received, a few weeks later, an acceptance letter with a very nice scholarship too. And then my family's like, "Well, here you go. You're going to Fordham." And it was great. I'm fortunate,
So not only did you make, I think that the people in the career offices really want those fun essays. Like, I feel like they're like, my life is so boring reading this. Anything outside of the normal, please have something to say.
Yeah.
It was a joke. You wrote a joke essay, I'm assuming, from the sound of it. And they not only said yes, they said, "And here's some money to come on, let's play."
Yeah, seriously. And it was literally the best decision I've ever made because as I think of, Fordham is a Jesuit school, they're very focused on community and giving back. And that's where I took all of those skills that I learned. I was a journalism major. I translated that into grant writing later, working for Salvation Army and other organizations. So it all came full circle. And grateful for my family's joke. Otherwise, don't know what life would look like. So,
Isn't it interesting how the universe has some paths for us that we may not have anticipated? It sounds
absolutely.
like your school was one choice. Like, I certainly was not looking to start a networking organization after partnering with networking organizations for 2 decades. I'm like, yeah, no, why would I start? No, there's amazing groups out there. Why would I do this? And then you're like, oh, well, maybe there is a reason. Sometimes the universe works in weird ways.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit, because I know you kind of tiptoed into nonprofit. And so I want to go through a little bit
Yeah.
of Eva's bio and background, because, we are talking nonprofit, but maybe not in the way that most people are typically thinking of. So Eva grew up in Corte Madera, California. Where in California is that? North,
That's
south?
northern. It's right out. It's in Marin County, right outside San Francisco.
There you go. Awesome. Me and my husband really like Petaluma and Santa Rosa because we like the beers. So we
Yeah.
like Russian River. Let's go have some beers. Sorry.
No, my aunt and uncle live there, so I go back at least 4 or 5 times a year.
Nice. All right. So she's out in California. After graduation, she moved to New York to attend Fordham University because, of course, why not, right? Where she has her bachelor's degree in communication and journalism. Later, she attended the Metropolitan College of New York and earned a master's degree in public administration. Now, after a gap year living abroad in Spain and Ireland, she moved back to San Fran and began her journey in fundraising. And so she worked for the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross, and then relocated to LA, where she worked for UCLA, After School All Stars, which is a nonprofit started by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and has recently concluded her fundraising career with Save the Children. Which, wait a minute, because we're talking Save the Children, that sounds like a community organization that's like about kids.
Yeah.
you're child free. I thought child free people don't like kids.
I know, it's really interesting to think about. I've actually had a few people ask me about that too. But Save the Children is such a fantastic organization. I was grateful for the opportunities and watching their focus on rural education for children in the United States, and then helping out in close to 100 countries overseas. So a lot of great work for kids and helping them out and their families too.
That is so awesome. And I love the fact
Yeah.
that it is, I do love seeing that there's so many child-free entrepreneurs that do work in the child space. I love the fact that we are creating that in our own way. And speaking of creating in your own way, because it sounds like you've done a lot of charitable work, you've done a lot of fundraising work, but that's not what you're doing nowadays. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you left being on the side where you were doing those kind of things to what you're doing now? Because I think that there's a lot of people that are hesitant in giving to charities because is the money going to make a difference? And I think that you got some great stuff going on. So tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. So, as you mentioned in my bio, I have at least 20 years, if not more, of experience working in the nonprofit sector as a fundraiser. And it was interesting because during my career, what I noticed is I thought, people were so generous in their giving, and it was so great to see the community come together to support various causes. And as the years went on, I started to notice a difference where people were, again, as you mentioned, a little bit more reluctant about giving, weren't quite sure, was their dollar going to make a difference? And so during COVID, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could go on the other side of the shop and actually work with the individuals and helping them identify charities that they could give to, and help and guide them through the process of what it's like to work with a nonprofit and how they really could make a difference and feel very comfortable with the process. And so typically, the kind of work that advisors do, you would find in like a foundation or maybe at a financial institution. But I was interested in really just kind of going out on my own to see if I could do it and partner with, other professionals in the community to help their clients start giving and giving responsibly.
So what are the type of people that would hire you, and how does that work? What does that look like?
So typically what I do right now is that I'm partnering with other professionals in the space. So I'll work with financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, and with CPAs, and also, with financial professionals within a family office. And so that way I could say, okay, do you have any clients who are interested in charitable giving or would like to learn more? And they might scratch their head and go, well, yeah, actually, somebody did mention that they wanted to, support a charity with a large gift, but they didn't quite know like who. And then they maybe put it in a donor advised fund, and then they just kind of let it sit. And they're like, there's a lot of analysis paralysis when it comes to giving. So I like to partner with those professionals to meet with their clients and say, hey, and go through a variety of exercises, figuring out what's really important to them, what, values did they grow up with that they'd like to translate with their giving. Do they want to get their husband involved? Do they want to get their family involved? And so that's, how I work with professionals right now, and always looking to partner with anyone, even for introductory conversations about philanthropy.
So let's say somebody is just now like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur and I spent all this time and I built up my business, and finally now I can breathe, and no longer is my business the charity that I'm taking care of. It's just, my business, myself, my family, my kids, et cetera, if they have those kind of things. And now I've got a little bit of an opportunity to begin giving back. How does that begin for a lot of people when they're able to make that shift? And I know you said a big gift. I have a feeling a big gift can be very different in what makes a big gift depending on the size of the group. So can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I think first and foremost, what I try to remind people is that it's very important that when you're like, okay, I want to support a charity, sit down with your financial professional or with a CPA and figure out the budget for it. It should just be another thing in a pocket where it's like, okay, I have X amount that I can support a charity with this year. And then from there, a big gift is interesting, right? It could be a big gift as to a small organization, and that could be like $5,000 sometimes can really make a big difference for, again, a organization that, is either just starting out or is doing important work in a small community. And then, if somebody's in a situation where maybe they're an entrepreneur and they sold their business and now they have like, a lot of extra money, that there are charitable solutions where people can, support their local food bank at a really big level, or they could maybe, give back to their university. They could also support hospital, whatever. Again, it has to tie in with their values, but gifts can be huge depending on the size of the organization. And I think if people have a smaller budget for giving, it's typically, I would recommend somebody focus on one place to give a donation to. If, again, the larger their budget, maybe they could choose 2 or 3. It really just depends on the organization and also the donor, and again, what kind of causes they want to support.
Yeah, how much does it go into play as, being an entrepreneur? Because here we are, y'all, women entrepreneurs living child-free. Not that everybody watches this program is a woman or child-free. We do have very entrepreneurial offices. So men, we appreciate you here. Dads, moms, we appreciate you here. All of that. How do we get in the mindset of, okay, how do I make an impact? Why give to a nonprofit versus something different? Like, walk us through that process, because I think that what we probably envisioned as, the younger kids, I remember going around collecting for like Easter seals, and what else did we do when we were kids?
UNICEF at Halloween. Did you ever do that? Okay.
Yes. Those kind of things. I think, and a lot of times I think people are very familiar with the national or the worldwide, like the Red Cross and things of that nature, versus there was a group, there were these 2 gals, and they were girls when we first started. They had a nonprofit that they did birthdays for adopted kids. So like they would help throw birthday parties for the people without a family and things of that nature, and like seeing the teenagers doing it, and what a big difference. Like we would do a little fundraiser, and yeah, that $500 or $1,000 makes such a big difference compared to, yeah, all of that. I just threw a lot at you. You know what I'm trying to say? You got some advice for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I really, really think that it's very important for people just to get clear about what it is that means the most to them, and then kind of pair that organization with the budget. So, for example, sometimes when there's a recession, you'll see that people really lean into organizations that offer food programming, right? Or you'll see that sometimes when there's situations, as in with the recent cuts to various government organizations, you'll see that people may want to lean in and go, wow, I really love my local public radio and I don't want it to go anywhere. $1,000 could make a really big difference. 2,000, 5,000. And if you even have a higher capacity, 10,000, 15, sky's the limit, right? At that point. I think that it's also, a lot of things are overlooked too. Everybody thinks, oh, I've just got to give money. That's the only way I can help. But not really. You can get involved with a board of an organization. I think as entrepreneurs, we have a skill set that a lot of that nonprofits will pay consultants a lot of money for. But if you're there in a voluntary capacity, you can also make a really big difference without thinking you have to write a massive check in order to get through. I think that also, even though we're, in our 40s, 50s, whatever, it's really important to think about our estate planning, especially for business owners. And, for most, women or men or anyone who's child free, people go, oh no, I won't be able to leave my legacy to my children. But that's not true. You can do that for a charity as well. And you can include a charity as part of your will to receive either a portion of your assets or the whole the whole policy, your whole life insurance policy, 401k, IRA, whatever that is for you. So outside of just giving cash, there's many different ways that you can really support charities in need.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing thinking about, okay, what are the skill sets? And I don't often think about, entrepreneurs in such a unique position because I've lived my life around entrepreneurs. I got into the entrepreneurial world in 2003. I started my first business. I was 24 years old and I moved to a new state. So I left behind everybody that I knew before. So my world is just entrepreneurs and I forget how unique and that various skill set to be able to succeed as an entrepreneur. You can survive doing it, but to succeed, you do have to have that kind of mindset and how am I going to make this happen? And what does that look like? And I'm a, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. And we were talking about him earlier and I did the tour when I was in Maine, and it talks about like Stephen King and big on the charitable work of helping with their library, like massive, but they make the community raise half. And so they're like, we'll donate, the millions that's needed, but the rest of the community has to come up with some of it. And so even thinking about how could we help some of our local community, fundraisers or partnerships to help out, even if we want to make an impact in that way, there's options to help and to assist.
Yeah, I think especially with all of the hustle you have to do as an entrepreneur, and that in a way, fundraising is going out networking and making contacts, and so that's something to really consider too. I think even with marketing, sometimes nonprofit organizations have a great story, but they don't really have the wherewithal to tell it. Right. Or maybe they don't have the opportunity to have a quick news story on their local news at 6 o'clock. But, if there's an entrepreneur who's very familiar with PR, marketing, business development, think about the impact you can make by partnering with your local charity to help them raise more funds or raise more awareness. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. And there's so much creativity that can be done. And I think nowadays that especially the younger generations are looking for that. What is that social give back? What is that commitment? How are you helping the community in some way, shape, or form, more of just the product or service? People want that social connection. Maybe that's what it is. Like, how do we make the impact? And in this child-free community, it's more, I won't say more unique or more different because everybody's different. We just don't have the built-in, the money's going to go to the kids.
Right, exactly. And I think, as I mentioned, there's just other ways to do that. And I think another great way when you start to identify like what charities that you want to partner with or support, volunteering is another great way to really see the work firsthand. It could be your own way of vetting an organization to see if that's one you want to get involved in. And I know when I'm thinking of local communities, I know that around the holidays, there's always opportunities to get involved with Thanksgiving, maybe serving meals or helping to package groceries. Or, I think there's also a lot of organizations that offer mentorship opportunities for people who want to help children who may be focused on education. And that's something they want to get involved with as well, which, when you don't have children and you have extra time and space, these are great ways to give back.
Yeah, definitely. There is a little bit more flexibility and freedom, I think, that we have. And so we can leave legacy in different ways. And I love that. Everybody gets to do what works for them. And speaking about doing what works for them, I know you have an amazing gift that you're offering to the people. Yeah, it's not limited to just you child-free ladies. So child-free ladies are welcome, but women with kids can talk to Eva as well. Men can talk to Eva. It is equal opportunity. You can just only be in the group if you're women entrepreneurs living child-free. You can totally hang out with both of us otherwise. But tell us about the gift that you have for the folks watching.
Yeah, if you're interested, I am more than happy to set up a 30-minute call to talk about charitable giving and, different avenues that you can get involved with your local organizations, or learn more about supporting national organizations. We could talk more about organizations during a disaster. How do you choose when there's so much noise happening after a hurricane or an earthquake? So yeah, 30-minute complimentary consultation to just chat about charity. Why not?
I love that you're being so charitable with the audience. Y'all, wherever you are watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, it is in the description. So you can go click on the expertphilanthropy.com/contact-us. If you need to type it in, it's on the screen as well. Talk to Eva to see what she can do to help you create that legacy. I know that is something that most of us child-free women are definitely looking for, and we're doing it in a way different than, our kids. And yes, I've got my nieces and nephews and cousins that will definitely be taken care of. And what's the legacy that we want above and beyond that? I love and appreciate that opportunity. So tell us, where can folks find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. You could put in Eva Fordham, Expert Philanthropy. I should pop up. Please connect with me there if you're interested. You can also check out my website. It's expertphilanthropy.com, and click on Contact Us, and you could also find me there.
All right. So I feel like you have the tea to spill with us on, charitable giving. And so I'm not going to ask for the bad stuff, because that's just not how I am. Can you share like one or two organizations that you found that you just totally do love and adore, that I get is not for everyone, but they light you up, that you enjoy?
It's interesting. I do have a few organizations that I really care about. Without naming, I'll just say, but I'm very big on organizations that equity is one of my values that I care about deeply. So organizations that support giving everybody a fair chance, whether it's returning veterans, whether it's children in situations where they may not have the resources to have access to education. I love organizations that offer scholarship programs. I could just go on and on and on. But I think, anything that we could do as a community to provide someone with an opportunity that they may not normally get, those are organizations that I typically gravitate to. And I just, especially like to pay attention to organizations that, have very, a stable financial plan and stable revenue sources. And those are ones that, ones that could really weather a storm when things happen, that they don't drop programs, that they actually that they're nimble and they're able to adjust.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds like some really great advice for us in choosing who are going to be the right folks. And speaking of advice, so y'all, we have come to another end of an amazing Friday conversation with another phenomenal woman that is living a child-free. And this is your last chance. Yeah, talking. What is it that we need to know before we go? Last bit of nugget for us today.
Okay, to know before you go, it's totally okay to give to charities. I know there's 1.9 million in America to choose from. It's really, really difficult. And there's also bad press that comes out. Oh, you'll hear something got mismanaged or whatever. But, talk to me and I could help you figure out, organizations that would be a great fit. And let's get back to giving. We can do it. Let's help our community.
Thank you, Eva, so much for helping the community, for helping us women entrepreneurs living child-free be able to create that legacy, for everybody else out there that wants to create their legacy. Thank you for helping us find the right folks for us that are the right fit. And we will see the rest of y'all next Friday, same time, same channel, as